and then we are going to go over the Phoenix dead zones so that we kind of know what our good ranges are for Phoenixes. So, this is the timeline here. You have your initial commit. This is where you are turning into your target. You are actually you're getting them on radar and doing all your things. You have target correlation. This is where you work with your wingmen or your flight and make sure that you are um, finding the targets. You're all seeing kind of the same picture, and you are organizing who is targeting who. Usually, you try to organize that beforehand if you're in a more organized group. You'd say like, "Hey, I'm going to target the closer targets. You're going to target the far ones, etc." Then you have targeting, where you are actually getting uh, a solution to you're getting your radar in the right mode. You're making sure you actually have them. Generally, you should be all targeted at 50 nautical miles. Um, this is sorting and sanitization. This is making sure you're not targeting any friendlies, and that you are indeed on the right target, etc., etc. So really, around 50 nautical miles, 45 nautical miles, beyond this point is just organizing your radar picture. Um, At about 40 nautical miles, this is where you're typically going to launch your Phoenixes. You can launch them further out. If you have targets that are hot to you, a Phoenix can still get a kill at 50 nautical miles if you want to shoot super far. If they are bombers, you can shoot at 60 nautical miles if they're coming hot to you. Because they're such big targets for your Phoenix and they're not going to maneuver much. So this timeline is adjustable. That's kind of the whole thing about it. This is just the options for a more defensive one is what this picture shows. So 40 miles is the baseline for a weapon launch. You really don't want to shoot after 35 miles. It starts to get a bit messy with dead zones, like we'll talk about in a bit. But while you're gonna want to usually shoot very fast and very high, so that your Phoenixes get the best performance. We'll talk about the differences between all the Phoenixes here in a bit. In this 40 to 30 mile range, you are making a decision about what you're gonna do. If you're playing solo, generally skating isn't the best idea, because you're going to have a bandit on your 6, and you still have a good distance between you, and they're going to be defending that missile, but there is a chance that they'll get on your 6 and get an advantage on you. So usually people who are solo just go banzai, and that just means that now you are going within visual range typically. Maybe you'll shoot another missile off in the crank here, but really bonsai is not very preferable. If you're flying with a wingman or something, you guys can stagger your timeline so that your wingman can come in after you, and you are allowed to skate while they're covering you so that they can get missiles off and you don't have to worry about people being on your 6. You can go ahead, you can notch left, you can notch right, and then make another decision if you are getting a missile on you and you want to be defensive. This skate up here is your optimal skate. It's at about 30 miles, 25 miles, somewhere around there. You're going to start at 30 miles. This gives you the most time to get good separation, and if you can skate and recommit and launch more Phoenixes, you're using the Phoenix missile to its best potential because you have a huge range advantage over almost every aircraft. So you can just skate, recommit, and shoot a whole bunch until they're dead, which is really nice. You're really not putting yourself in much risk here. Even if the Bandit has AIM-120s, like F-16s or F-18s, if you're fighting modern NATO jets, if you skate at about 30 miles, they're really not going to have any good chance of hitting you unless they have super good parameters on launch. And if they do have super good parameters on launch, odds are your Phoenix is going to nail them because they are focusing on getting those missile parameters, not dodging. If you're going against a Russian aircraft, on the other hand, or you want to stay in longer for a better radar picture, you can do something called a short skate, which is at 20 nautical miles. This is just where you skate. You go longer in the crank before you actually skate. So, and then of course you have this abort, which is at 30 miles, where instead of recommitting, you just abort. And you can see some defensive maneuvering here. The Tomcat's very fast. You can get away from most threats if you skate at 30 miles and just want to abort, right? So again, this timeline is very dynamic. Everything's going to happen here. You're sorting and sanitizing. You might have like 30 seconds for weapons deployment. You have like a 15-second window where you have a good weapon launch parameter. And it's more like 30, 45 seconds, but you have like 15 seconds for this 40-mile launch window. And all of this stuff is decisions, right? You don't have to launch at 40 miles. That's going to be a decision that your backseater is going to make based on the situation, what kind of targets you're seeing, how big their radar cross section is, that kind of thing. One thing here I didn't talk about too much, which is called the F-pull maneuver, or a crank. This is really what you pilots have to worry about in the timeline, is getting this crank off. To do a crank, you're going to do a pretty standard rate turn to the right or left. It may depend on the situation which way you want to crank, but you're just going to try to turn so you're about 30 degrees nose off of the bandit. And what that does for us is, after we've launched our missiles and they have good parameters, we are extending our distance to the bandit by not flying straight at them. We're reducing our closure rate, but we aren't going away from them so that we're losing our radar picture on them, and we're still able to guide our munitions. So RIOs in the back seat, you're going to your pilot's going to start turning. They're going to go about 30 degrees off the course of this bandit, maybe up to 60 degrees at most, for the most aggressive crank. But if they ever start reaching the end of your radar screen, where they're on that 60 area, you're going to want to call gimbals. Pilots, if your RIO ever calls gimbals, that means you're about to lose your radar picture if you keep going. So give the call a little bit early, RIOs, so your pilots have time to roll out and level. And you may need to, if your bandit is also cranking, let's say they crank to their right, to your left up here, you are also going to need to come left in your crank so that you don't lose that radar picture. And that's something RIOs are going to have to keep their eye on. Another good practice is to speed up in this crank, and also to descend so that your radar starts pointing up at your target. If you're already below them, then you won't need to worry about this as much. But if your radar is looking down at a target, your Phoenix is much less likely to hit them, just because they're going to probably get caught in the main lobe clutter filter at some point here during the crank. It's pretty hard to avoid. So if you start descending at about a 5-degree angle, then it is quite likely that they won't get caught in that main lobe clutter filter. And if they're above you, it's essentially guaranteed that they're not going to. So that can be very helpful to your RIO. You may still want to maintain altitude to maintain your advantage, but I find that the hit probability goes up significantly with just a shallow dive. Does anyone have any questions about this?
I have some questions that may not relate, but I don't know. How do you use WS, and how do you figure out what's a friendly and what's not?
So are you a pilot?
Yeah.
That is all RIO stuff.
Okay. Well, I never learned how to do it with Jester, so I just never know how to fly when I'm on my
Line,
own.
do you want to cover that?
Sure. This is what I have up right now. The actual I like to actually Chuck's guide's visual better, but in regards to the symbology, the HUD symbology, so you have two ways to determine sort of with your onboard radar, your OG9, or if it's coming through a data link. If it's below the dot, that's from your data link. If it's above the dot, that's your own radar identifying if it's friendly or foe. So if it's a half square, that's an unknown. Unknown, it's a bogey. If it's a triangle, like a half caret, half triangle, that's hostile. If it's a half circle, that's friendly. And if it's again, as mentioned, if it's above the dot, that's coming from your OG9, that's determining IFFF. If it's below the dot, that's coming from the data link or a third-party source.
And Jester will automatically IFF for you. He's pretty fast about it.
Yeah, in regards to like the Phoenixes, you have your time to impact. The number will change once fired. Regards to priority solution being fired on, it will start flashing once it goes pit bull, which is what, like 15 seconds out or something like that. It all depends
10
on
nautical, 10 nautical miles out.
10 nautical miles out, correct. And yeah, whatever that time to impact is at whatever range you fired at, however it's going, whatever juice it has left. You get an X. You can talk about the X. It's extrapolated target. You sort of lost the target, but it's going off of its last known good location. I don't know. Does that sort of answer your question?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah, there is one extra part to it, and that's how to use TWS. The computer in the back will automatically handle TWS. I believe there's a way to change your targets, but really it's not going to be very feasible for you to change your targets in an engagement, because the timeline is pretty short. It doesn't take long for all of this to happen. So I wouldn't mess with it if you don't have a human RIO in the back. The computer will, if your back guy in the back seat is in TWS, the computer will automatically select targets for you. They will be flashing on your on that TID.
Will they always be like friend? I mean, enemy, or do I have to like?
So like I said, Jester will IFF them, and he won't launch on any friendly he's identified. So he still needs time to IFF. It takes him like 2 seconds, I think, per target.
Yeah.
So
So
if you
continue. Yep. No, you can continue.
if you find a target immediately and launch as soon as you see him, there is a chance you can do blue on blue. But he'll IFF them after, and you'll know you're doing blue on blue if you pay attention to the TID. But really, the main thing is just give him a little bit of time to sort and sanitize the targets, and then he'll figure it all out, and you won't have to worry about it.
And if it is a NATO, like if you're playing on a server and it's a NATO airframe that's on the enemy side for some reason, if you go to that gesture menu and hit select enemy target ahead, he won't select it because it's a NATO airframe. However, he will show as hostile on your TID. So you just have to, if you're trying to do an STT lock, you just have to sort of like make sure there's no friendlies ahead of you and just select, have a gesture select enemy, select target in front of you, whatever target's in front of you, if you know it's a hostile based on your TID how gesture in the back seat. And that scroll wheel menu.
All right.
The only thing I would also keep a mention in regards to the timeline for your Phoenix launches, in regards to like your last Phoenix launch, that BVR timeline that you pull up is pretty good. Example, say like you're going up against like an F-18, for example, because that's the most popular airframe, so to speak, if you're going to go up against it. I think like they're carrying the AIM-120s. That DR, what it's already here, that's a pretty good example. Like this DOR and DR, the F-18 is probably going to fire the AIM-120s at 25, 22 if you're coming in hot. If you're coming in hot on them, there's a thing called like the A-pole. The time it takes for your Phoenixes to go pit bull, which is nominal, ideally 10 nautical miles after launch, depending on how fast you're going. So your last Phoenix missile, in regards to putting the enemy, the bandit, on defensive before they can fire their missiles, and they have a chance to go active, would probably be like you mentioned, 30 nautical miles would be the last Phoenix you would want to fire at that point, where your Phoenix will put them on defensive, giving you, it'll put them on defensive at this 22 nautical mile range, this decision range, giving you time to either decide, yeah, I'm going to, go cold, pull out of this situation, or you know what, I'm going to go bonsai. I'm going to let my Phoenix keep that guy on defensive. I'm switching the Sparrows. I'm going to get nose on, type of deal. So in regards to like how he's mentioned, it's all dynamic. Just yeah, that's my only input in regards to the A pole. It's about takes about 10 nautical miles as well for it to go pit pole, depending on how fast you're going and your range altitude.
Real quick, if you guys look back at Mr. Talk's screen, I'm gonna do a quick little BVR demo to show you what it will look like on the TID, so that you can have an idea. So first of all, someone might call for you to fence in pilots. That just means that you're going to want to have your weapon selected and your master arm on. Those are the main things for fencing in. There's also some stuff with your lights, but we're not going to worry about that too much. And here is the back screen. So you can see Jester already sanitized a little bit, but he didn't get to this one. So let's go ahead and IFF that. That is a hostile, so I can mark him as hostile. And let's turn off the main lobe clutter filter, because I'm looking over the ocean, so I can probably keep targets easier. And that's a friendly. So let's go ahead and identify that as friendly. So I have 2 targets here that I'm going to want to keep my eyes on. I can mark this as do not attack, and it will not even worry about him on the radar picture. So I can just keep these guys in the picture. So I'm approaching 40 miles, so I'm going to lob a Phoenix. 1 off the rail. Takes 3 seconds for it to actually launch, so keep that in mind. And 2 off the rail. And you'll notice that there is now a timer. They were blinking and there was a number next to them. That number is the launch order. So the RIO can change the launch order by hitting this next launch in the back seat. Very useful. But now it's gone solid highlighted, and that means that there is actually a missile out on this target. If there is ever an X on this target, that will mean that they are now an extrapolated target, so the AUG-9 no longer actually sees them. And you can see my AUG-9 is actually doing something stupid here, and it's probably going to get an extrapolated target, because it is focusing too much on these contacts, which I don't even want to attack. This one might be an enemy, actually. No, that's also friendly. So, still have 2 missiles out, still highlighted that light green. And you can see that the timers aren't too accurate. If your timer ever starts kind of going stupid and stalling, that likely means your missile's running out of energy. And now our missiles have gone pitbull. You can tell because these numbers are not flashing. So at this point, if I was cranking properly, I would tell my pilot that we can go ahead and skate, do whatever we want. And if I go ahead and hook this guy, we're at about 25 nautical miles. So we could have been skating already and gotten out of here. Let's go ahead. And then at this point, if you're bonsai, I would actually, let's make sure this is the guy I want. Nope, I lost him. At this point, though, I would generally get an STT lock. You can see I killed a Hornet here, and there's an Su-25 kill. So that's what a general TWS engagement will look like, minus the crank and all that, just looking at the TID screen. Any questions about what you're looking at? Okay. Pilots, there is also a launch symbol, an X on the TID screen, and there's also a little square. Those are both steering cues. The X is the missile launch steering cue, so it's telling you where it wants you to fly in order to launch a missile. So if I go ahead and master arm again, and I choose the right weapon, and I go into TWS, it's going to give me a square steering centroid, which is going to change. The square is like the middle of where you want to fly to get the best Q for all of your targets, and the X is where you want to fly to. You can see it's the same right now. It's generally the same, but sometimes it is different. The X is just kind of where you want to fly to keep all the targets on the radar screen. I think the square is actually like the best missile launch for. So it's saying if you fly here, you can launch missile on 1, then it'll change a little and you can launch one on 2. I don't worry about the square too much. The X is just kind of middle of where you want to fly, etc. I could also shoot missiles at friendlies here because I haven't sanitized. So if I go ahead and hit my IFF here, I can see 2 friendlies on the DDD. So I know that if I were to launch right now, 2 of these guys are friendlies. Right. Any questions at all? Wonderful.
If at all, there's one. You've mentioned sometime that there are few planes that are as fast or faster as F-14. Is there a chart where I could reference the targets and their capabilities as far as DCS is concerned?
I think it's out there, but I don't think you'll
Yeah,
be
I'm sure
having
there's
enough time
something
to
that's
look
max
that up.
speed. Honestly, it's mainly going to be about your energy state, though. You're not really going to be going up against too much that's going to have an engine that is so much stronger than yours that if you skate at 30 miles, they're just going to catch you like nothing. You're not going against like any MiG-25s or something like that, those crazy things, the Foxbat. So, really, I would say anything you're going against, so long as you have a missile on them and the missile tracks okay, they're going to have to be defensive at that 30-mile mark, so they're not just going to automatically catch you. Even if they have really good engines and they can get their speed up pretty fast, you can go really fast at these speeds especially. And if you're at any altitude, like let's say you're at 30,000, you are going to have an easier time going Mach than almost any other aircraft because we are that swing wing. So,
Yeah.
like an F-16, for instance, it has better thrust to weight ratio, so it's going to accelerate faster. However, because it's a fixed wing, it's going to have trouble actually getting that Mach compared to us. The Tomcat is very, very good at high altitude fast flight. So I wouldn't stress about it too much, honestly.
Yeah, if you're like going cold, like if you can like when you see start dogfighting, like you'd be even if you're like within 5 nautical miles, like 4 to 5 nautical miles, and you're firing like a Sparrow or even a Phoenix at a Bandit that's going cold from you, and you're both like going like 500 knots, then it's not catching them. He's already like it's just I wouldn't be too concerned about it in regards to you being the F-14 with your powerful engines. You're gonna outrun anything as long as you have good distance.
Of
and
course,
you're
there
at
are some
speed.
things that are going to catch you, and if you're down low, you're kind of in trouble.
Oh yeah, if it's a
So,
SAM site, you're fucked. But
oh yeah, if you're doing BVR against the SAM site, you're doing something wrong. But yeah, anyways, once I get close here, it is also advisable to pick one of those targets that you think is least likely to hit and get them in an STT lock. That just for a Sparrow launch, because Phoenixes, they can get notched quite easily. Even if the AUG-9 isn't being notched, the Phoenix has a different radar on board, which is quite easily notched. What is this? I haven't seen that before.
within range, that's the AES, I think. The adjustable error steering cue.
Interesting. I haven't
Oh.
seen that on the backseat here. Wonder if they patched that in. But either way, there is also a missile launch zone here, which you can turn on in the back seat to see. It adds a little brick to the end of your range. I always forget how to read it because I don't use it. I just use the timeline, and it's not very accurate. So technically, you can launch within those zones, but odds are you're gonna miss. So I just stick to the timeline and my ranges. But you can use it if you like. You can hit it here, and we're actually all in range, so you don't see the brick on the end of the line. But once that brick is gone, you're in range, is what I think it is. if you guys wanted to know. Okay, if we don't have any more questions, we'll get into a little bit of practice here.
I have a question. So how do the Phoenixes compare performance-wise to like the AIM 120s?
So actually, yeah, I do have some other stuff to go over. Good reminder. I completely forgot I have more theory. So, Phoenixes compared to AIM-120s, AIM-120s are much better at closer ranges, hands down, because the Phoenix is an absolute bus. It is a huge missile. So at closer ranges, the AIM-120 is going to be a lot more maneuverable, and has a better radar, so it's going to track better. However, the Phoenix does have better ballistics, especially at high altitudes, at high Mach, and it gets a lot better range. So the AIM-120, the no escape zone is about like 15 miles, I want to say. The Phoenix no escape zone, if I have it here, I don't. Let me go into my files. The Phoenix no escape zone here is, if you're at a high altitude, it can be up to like 16 miles. If you're at a low altitude, you can see it's terrible at like 3.5 miles for the Mark 47. And the Mark 60s, which are the better ones, have a no escape zone of up to 20 miles. So we do have a longer range, and our max range, you can see here, is much farther than an AIM-120. An AIM-120, you're never really going to launch beyond like 30 nautical miles, even on a hot target. And 30 miles is you have really good performance. You're going a really high Mach, you're really high, and you're not betting on your missile hitting. You're just kind of shooting it to shoot it. So the Phoenix has much better range, and you can outperform the AIM-120 at range. Once you get close in, you start to suffer a lot, and at low altitudes, the AIM-120 is quite a bit more effective because of these how thick the how massive the Phoenix is. It just struggles at very low altitudes to actually get up to Mach. It burns a lot more fuel. So anyways, differences between all the missiles. Let's go over that. There's two guidance types on the missiles, and there is 2 motors for the missile. This Mark 47, Mark 60 is the motor, and the Alpha or Charlie designation on a Phoenix is the guidance type. Alpha is a analog guidance type. They work the same in DCS for guidance. I think the C is a little bit better, but really it's not very different. The main difference is that if you launch an Alpha in an STT lock, it will not ever go pitbull. It will only hit the target if you maintain that STT lock. If you launch a Charlie in an STT lock, if you lose lock for whatever reason, the missile will go pitbull and will try to hit whatever target it sees. So that is something to keep in mind. Alphas are safer to use in a furball environment, for instance, where you're engaging an enemy inside where there's friendlies. You generally don't ever want to do that. But if you're doing it, an A is going to be safer. However, C is useful in more scenarios where you may have to go defensive early because there's a missile out on you. Your missile might still just randomly hit someone. Might randomly hit an enemy, hopefully. So, that's the main difference there. The Mark 47 is a smokeless motor. So if you're doing PvP, you may want to go with a smokeless motor so that they don't get that warning out at like 20 miles. They might see the smoke trail and realize there's a missile on them before your missile goes pitbull, right? So it can be useful for that. However, the Mark 60s are much better ballistically. They have a higher hit probability. They have a much farther range. If you launch a Mark 60 at 60 miles and a Mark 47 at 45 miles, I would bet on the Mark 60 any day. So, if you're using Mark 47s, your timeline kind of shortens up to that 30-mile launch area instead of the 40-mile. Any questions about the differences between the two missiles? Okay. Before I get ahead of myself here, let's go over a couple of other things. This is the Phoenix Dead Zone. This is really for the, for both of them, but more so for the Mark 60. There's a little dead zone right here in between 20 and 30 nautical miles where the Phoenix may not loft. If it lofts, you're fine. But if it doesn't loft, which means it goes up in the air to get higher Mach up here, then it's going to burn its motor out in this 20 to 30 mile gap, trying to get to the target, and it's going to have a pretty bad probability of hitting. If it does loft, you're fine. Or if you're within 20 miles, it just has enough fuel to just burn through it and not have to worry about it. So it has the same chance of hitting as if you launch at like 40 miles. But keep in mind that if you're launching after 30 miles, it's more of a get better positioning missile, not really a hit missile. Sometimes you still get lucky and it hits in this range. Just try to launch before 30 nautical miles. If you're launching at about 50 miles, right about here, your missile is not going to be too great on energy. If they're coming hot to you very fast, I would still be fine with it. If they're not maneuvering heavily, but you're still kind of in a dangerous zone beyond 50 miles. I've gotten hits at 70 miles on bombers that are abeam or coming slightly hot to me. So Phoenixes have a crazy range. It's just that they really don't have much maneuvering capability at these further ranges. So, and you guys saw the no escape range there. The no escape ranges I was talking about earlier, what that is that no matter what maneuvering the bandit does, the missile has enough energy to turn as much as it wants and still hit the target. That's what the no escape zone is. If you launch out at 50 here and your bandit starts constantly pulling F pulls to make your missile change its course, they're going to bleed off all its energy and it's not going to hit your target. So that's the difference between that no escape range. If your target is cold to you, in any scenario really, it does become quite a bit harder to hit your target. So I would honestly wait until if it's a fighter target, I would wait until like 20. There's a wasp in my room. Fuck you, wasp. Get out of my room. No, you don't want out of my room. Wonderful. He's out of my room. Why isn't anyone clapping? Okay. Anyways, I think I covered it all. Any questions? Okay, sweet. This is under the wrong page. Why is this here? So if you guys want to go ahead and load up to, you want to do server 1, I'm guessing?
You might have mentioned it at the beginning, but what altitude are we shooting to start the fights at?
You generally want to be above 25,000. The higher you are, the better. Your missile will get better performance. But generally 25,000 is kind of the floor of where you want to be shooting. Obviously, if you're a lot closer, you can launch lower. And if someone's on the deck, it's pretty hard to launch at 25,000. You're just going to keep losing them on your radar. So that may be a scenario where you want to STT someone. But generally that 25,000 is the minimum.
Yeah, just keep in mind your slant range for your radar. I mean, you can tilt it up and down. Where the bandit's at. If he starts to notch you, like going straight, pull a straight down maneuver, you're gonna lose radar picture before your missile goes pitbull.
Okay, and you mentioned like the 5-degree dive, but are we aiming to maintain altitude as much as we can during the fight?
After your missiles are off, you don't care about that. When you launch, you want the most speed you can get, so you might even want to burn for 10 seconds before you launch if you really want to get it up there. You want the best altitude, but after you launch, you aren't worried about that because it's not going to make your missile perform any better. The reason you want to be at that high altitude is so that the air is less dense and your missile can be more effective. If you descend down to the deck immediately after launching, your missile is going to get the same performance. Nothing's going to change with it. All that's going to change is your position and where your radar is looking. So long as you still get a good radar picture, I don't really care what you do. So yeah, you don't need to maintain the altitude unless you want to get more missiles off, and then that is a consideration. There are two ways to launch, by the way. You can launch in the front seat, or the RIO can launch. Generally, what I do is, if we're obeying the timeline and we're not bonsai right now, I would just launch in the back seat. And then I would direct my pilot everything to do. I'd say, hey, go ahead and crank right, gimbals, so stop turning. Okay, go ahead and turn 5 degrees left, or do a 5-degree left-hand bank angle, something like that, and give that guidance to my pilot. This is really the bread and butter of the backseater. You'll notice that the RIO stands for Radar Intercept Officer. This was their main job, was to coordinate these intercepts and handle everything so that the pilot can just fly. So, Had, why don't you go ahead and hop in with Sheep? Dodger, if you want to hop on VWA server number 1, we'll have you hop in the BVR arena and you guys can get some practice on each other. I'll hop in with you for this first fight so that you can like have a real. Fine. We're going to be communicating on the intercom, Dodgers, so be ready for that. Okay, go ahead and hit fly, everyone. We're inside, 55 miles, welcome.
Can you hear me? I can hardly hear you.
Roger, I'm straight.
You're very quiet.
Roger, I don't have Phoenixes. I need Phoenixes.
Let me just change my sound settings really quick. Maybe that'll help. I don't know.
We're about to get shot by a missile here,
I
so
know.
I wouldn't do it now. Yeah.
Give me a second, I hung again.
Rip.
I think there's something off with my settings. I will have to check them.
Okay, turn in. Okay, switch to Sparrows. fast over us. Go ahead and brake right. Brake right. Okay, you just did a split ass. He's trying to come under us. Keep her level in turn. He's gonna be out in front of us below the clouds here. Missile launch. 25. Okay, good fight. Go ahead and reslot. So, Dodger, did you figure out your audio things?
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Good flight. GG's.
Go ahead and hit fly. So, just because you're in TWS doesn't mean the radar's gonna work. I might have notched you at that point. That's possible. But my guess is, were you trying to get me in an STP lock? Is that what you mean, or you just had me?
No, I basically was trying to change the. Well, I wanted to IFF you in early on, and before I managed to do that, you basically disappeared from the.
Oh yeah, if I disappeared, that means you lost me on the radar. Go ahead and keep it straight. Straight on the target. Go ahead and burn up to burn up to like 35. Go ahead and fence in. Dr. Confirm you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great, go ahead and fence in, master arm on, Phoenixes. Okay, climbing through 35,000 right now. Can you confirm fence in, please?
Master arms on. What else do I got to do?
You gotta press your weapon selector switch to Phoenix, so it's gonna be this weapon switch you used earlier. Press it again. There should be one more setting for it.
It only goes to Sidewinders and SP.
Yeah, it's not down. There's one weapon selector's switch that's Sparrow or Phoenix. That's the one I use. Let's go ahead and try to disengage with the Sparrows, I guess. Go ahead and dash. Get into like a 20-degree bank angle 5 here. Sorry, 20-degree angle 5. I didn't do that. That's what I'm saying. Just get to it 5. You don't need to angle. You're still banking. I want you quite straight.
Just to confirm, Pitbull, before the missile goes Pitbull, the TI time to light should be blinking, shouldn't it?
Yes.
When it should be solid. When it goes Pitbull, it will be blinking.
Okay. And I hung again.
Rip.
Yeah,
most of
you
them on
need
the
to
radar,
check what's going on.
They're gonna be off the road.
To be honest, it's extremely surprising with the hardware I'm using currently that it's basically hanging.
So we're turning beyond that 30 degrees. Thank you.
I have no idea where he is.
Yep, we lost him, so it's we gotta re-find him. This is always the hard part. He's gonna be off our 9 o'clock, go ahead and turn left. Oh, we have another one off our front right. Who is it? No! Okay, let's do it 14 minutes or so.
Is he off our nose?
Yeah, he's pretty close up here. He's gonna be off our front left here. That's him, really close. You're gonna want to use sidewinders at this range. No, he's in close. Yep.
Dang. So is it the trigger or the missile button?
Yes.
It's just the trigger. If you have a lock like that, you have your weapons locked.
Okay, so we have Phoenix now. That's an improvement.
We sure do. Yep. Go ahead and burn up to 35,000. I'm setting a super aggressive missile here, so we're going to need to commit to it longer. In the pull, I'm going to have you crank right. Go ahead and get him on our nose. He's about 10 degrees off our right here. Okay, go ahead and level out for me real quick. Box 3. One away, go ahead and crank right. Remember, gentle right hand turn. Go ahead and level it out here. We're going to do a very gentle crank here. We can go about 20 more degrees. Don't turn into him. Keep that right. Go ahead and level out. They're about to go pitbull. Go ahead and turn it hot.
I definitely need to check what's going on.
Missiles pitbull. STT. Your missiles.
I think I definitely need to check what's going on.
Sagan?
Select Sparrow. We're at 14 miles. Okay, he's still defensive. Go ahead and shoot that Sparrow.
Fox 3?
That's Fox 1.
Fox 1?
Fine, I don't think we even went over that. So it's close enough. Okay, he is below us. We're about to lose him on the radar. Go ahead and turn down. I'm assuming you're looking at him, Admiral. You're fine if you're looking at him. Okay, he's at 5 miles.
That's a hit.
Okay, I think it's done. I need some time. I need to see what is going on and why am I getting hung once in a while.
Sure thing.
It's far too common and I don't know why.
Sure thing. Make sure your preload radius isn't super low. Otherwise, it'll be loading in all your stuff repeatedly. Go ahead and reslot everyone.
Give me a second. We'll try to quickly restart the DCS.
Sure thing. I'm gonna have you fly with the Jester, Dodger. I'm gonna hop in with Purple here, so he can get a little bit of practice with the RIO.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and fly, everyone.
Well, I don't see any...
There's Bandit, Bra, 270, 53 miles.
Arena, I'll give you target while I'm checking what's going on, by the way. So you will have easy target.
Yeah, don't do that. We're fighting right now. So
Roger
don't add someone else in the arena.
Doesn't see that one. I will quickly. Get out of here, preferably. Just so it doesn't destroy anything. And we get back disconnect quickly.
Jester keeps losing the radar contact.
Yeah, Jester's terrible.
Okay, let's do this.
Three. Two. Bruh.
Nails, 11 o'clock, and Spike, 11 o'clock. Spike on our nose, 12 o'clock. Missile, 12 o'clock. Hot, break left. We have a Bandit, Tomcat, 1 o'clock. 5 miles. Bandit, 275, 68 miles. Okay. I have a lock. Target, 62 miles. Target, 52 miles. Target, 42 miles.
On. Three. Okay.
Target, 31 miles. I lost lock. Okay, nails. 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Okay, we're on. Missile, 12 o'clock high. Hot. Break left.
So, I will say at that range, launching a Phoenix is pretty risky. If we were jamming off the bat, I would bet that your missile would have gone dumb. But we weren't, so good kill. Why am my oh no, I'm gonna die. My parachute didn't deploy. I'm just falling in an ejection seat. No.
Well, my
Okay.
pilot's pretty dead, so.
I ejected us, but I think my seat was damaged. So I'm dying a worse death than if I had stayed in the aircraft, probably.
Mic check.
Loud and clear. Intercom check.
Hear ya.
Great.
We're fenced in.
Give me a second, trying to lock him. There we go. Altitude, 35,000 feet and rising. Range, 56 miles, bearing 9. I do believe 40 was the good range, wasn't it? Would you like to launch it, or would you like me to launch it?
You can go ahead and launch it.
Roger that.
Why don't you go ahead and do an early one, and then we'll try and get a second one off at 40.
Roger. Box free.
Alright, cranking.
Roger. And I'm launching second. Okay, that's odd. It seems I can launch the second one, by the way. Altitude 35,000 feet, range 31. Bearing 345. Pitbull.
Ah,
Oh, we both got hits, I believe.
double kill.
Yep.
Was it? Did you guys get hit by that?
Yep,
I did.
it looked like it was a swap kill, basically.
Oh, yep, that happens, especially with Fox 3s, so yeah. If you guys want to keep practicing, then be my guest. That's what F-14B VR looks like. Obviously, against another F-14, you fire your Phoenixes at the same time, so they don't quite go defensive as early, which does give you a disadvantage because against another F-14, you guys are on the same timeline. However, if you were to do that same thing against another aircraft type, odds are that they're not going to have missiles that are going to be able to compete with yours, so you can skate at that 30 miles and not even have to worry about your missile dodging. If you ever do have to worry about missile dodging, just remember how missiles operate. They are meant to go very, very fast, high Mach, and they're trying to burn a lot of their energy super fast to get to you. So if you can pull a crank maneuver, you will get a lot of benefit out of that. They will lose a lot of energy just by you changing your course. Because if you do a 10-degree course deviation, if you do 60 degrees. So let's say you're facing 0 and you crank left, and then there's a missile on you, so you crank right again. You brake right. That missile, in order to keep you, is going to have to change a lot more and use a lot of energy turning left to turn into you, so that it's just going to bleed a ton of energy doing that. If you're ever dodging long-range SAM sites like SA-10s, you can crank like 3 or 4 times at its max range, and it won't even get like halfway to you because it's using so much energy trying to turn onto you. So that's the way of defeating missiles at long range, is just to keep changing what you're doing. To defeat missiles at close range, especially Phoenixes and things that are big heavy bricks like that, doing this against the Sidewinder is not going to work for you. But close range missiles is really just turning into its path so that it has to make a higher G turn to you, unless that puts you into the path of the missile, in which case you're going to want to turn away. It's kind of hard to visualize, but just keep an eye. If you can find the contrail of the missile, rather than looking at its RWR, you stand a really good chance of automatically kind of instinctually knowing what to do. If you kind of understand, like if you were in that missile, what you have to do to hit the target, you want to make it as hard for the missile as possible, right? So that's really not part of this course. Missile evasion is kind of something you have to learn. We teach you basic notching, but besides that, does anyone have any questions about today?
So once you hit the skate point and you're going cold or whatever, what do you do after that?
So you have 2 options. You can either abort, which means that you're gonna bug out and you're going to leave the area, or you're going to recommit. The reason we aren't skating today in our practice is because these are one-on-one fights. So it doesn't. If you skate, you're just gonna have a Tomcat on your 6, right? And they're gonna be 30 miles off your 6, so you're gonna be kind of safe. But it doesn't really make sense for a BVR fight scenario to skate. So normally when you would do this is when you have someone backing you up. Let's say you have another Tomcat. That Tomcat could fly parallel to the fight, so they don't have a ton of closure rate to it, at about 60 miles, right? And then, as your lead ship is engaging, that Tomcat can turn into a kind of crank position where they see the contacts on their radar, but they're not facing the contacts yet. And then as your first Tomcat skates, your second Tomcat can commit and turn in. They'll be at about 50, 40 miles at that point, probably a bit closer, probably about 40 to 30 miles. And then they have good missile launch criteria. They can turn in on the bandits and fire their missiles off. And while the other Tomcat is skating, those first Phoenix missiles are covering that first Tomcat so that they're not, if there's any missile launches on them, they can't continue to be guided. And it's making sure that second Tomcat it has a open field. They're not even being engaged because those first Phoenixes are again distracting those targets. If those first Phoenixes miss, then you don't have to worry about, sorry, if they hit, then you don't have to worry about the re-engagement. And that second Tomcat was just there to ensure that the first Tomcat has an opportunity to skate and then recommit. And then the timeline starts right back up again for that Tomcat. Or that second Tomcat can go in and get hits. And they can, that second Tomcat, again, is following their own timeline. They're at that 30 to 40 mile range, so it might be a closer shot, but they can shoot their Phoenixes and skate. And while they're doing that, that first Tomcat is able to turn back from their skate and re-engage. So think of the timeline as kind of a loop. You keep doing the timeline until it works. Those Phoenixes are probably the missiles you're going to work with that are going to hit the least. Like I said, they're big, bulky trucks. So, and their radar isn't particularly good, especially against ground clutter. So you do have to keep that in mind. However, with that range advantage, especially if you have a wingman, you can just keep skating and launch 12 Phoenixes without having to ever get within Sparrow range, right? And if someone manages to dodge 12 Phoenixes, yeah, at that point you might want to even abort and go get more Phoenixes because they can't. If they follow you, they're not going to catch up to you anyways. So in theory, all you need to be completely safe in a Tomcat is a Phoenix, the timeline, and a wingman, and that's all you need. You can also skate solo, like I said, but generally, if you're still getting RWR returns behind you, that means that the hostile evaded the missile in a way that they're following you, and it's not really safe to turn back in. If you turn back in, you're going to be in a within visual range engagement pretty fast, and that means that you are you're coming in at a disadvantage because you're the one who had to turn back in. So skating solo is not quite as helpful. It still can help. For instance, if they have to evade harder to evade the missile, then when you turn back in, you'll have a slight advantage. But once you get up close like that, with any plane, so long as you're not actually merged, you guys are on an equal playing field. You both have missiles that are capable of launching at those ranges. Your missiles are going to be relatively similar in capabilities, and it's going to be hard for either of you to dodge missiles at that range. So you'll get more scenarios where you either kill each other or where it's 50-50 you're going to win, which obviously you kind of want to avoid. You want to play to the Tomcat strengths and launch at that long range. Anyways, I like hearing myself talk. Any other questions?
Do we have a few minutes to look at that last fight or two in tech view?
Yeah, we can do that. Let me go ahead and get it open for you.
I also had another question. In that last fight, we fired a Phoenix at like 50 or something, and then we had trouble getting the second one off the rail. Is there like a...
Yeah, so Phoenixes, once you have one on a target, they don't you can't shoot another at the same target. They kind of like lock you out of selecting that target again. So
Okay.
if you lose that target and they become extrapolated, you can fix that and just launch another missile at them. So what if you really wanted to, you can do that, or you can probably what's better is to get them in an STT lock after it goes pitbull, and then follow up with another Phoenix or Sparrow. Let's go ahead and select F-14.
So that is a big difference from the AMRAAMs.
Yeah, AMRAAMs, they're called spam rams for a reason. There's a lot of times where you just launch like 20 of them. Oh no, Drug Dog. Is that you, Dodger?
No.
It says it's you. It says it's Drug Dog and then it switches to you. That's so weird.
I have no
Okay.
idea what Drug Dog is.
You are Drug Dog now. New call sign Drug Dog because the game doesn't know who you are. Wonderful. Okay. So let's go back to our first fight here. Our first couple fights were a bit, we were having issues with some controls and getting Jester to work and all that. So this first fight became a merge fight. That first AIM-7 definitely looks like it was fired too close, so it didn't track. And then this AIM-7 looks like it hit. Yep, that's a pretty good one. You're still pretty close at that range, but it worked out. So that was our first fight. This second fight, this is a pretty good deployment. You can see that it lost really well and he launched it straight onto us. So this is pretty good. I think I was jamming here. And it looks like the missile actually went stupid off the rail here. I'm guessing that you turned too far at one point.
No, I had the ACM on.
We might have lost the target.
Oh, that was this fight? You turned it on every fight?
I had it on almost all the fights besides the last two.
Okay. So yeah, that's why it went dumb then, is because it was using the radar at this point. So if it saw anything up here, it would have tried to hit it. And it's still using its radar up to this point. At this point, the battery's probably dead because it doesn't have an unlimited battery for the radar. The radar takes a lot of power. So at this point, the battery's dead. It would have seen us here if it still had a good enough radar. But it didn't. So here it looks like we lost each other. We're both trying to find each other. At this point, I see you on my RWR. Remember this fight? So we're going in. And looks like you get us with an AIM-7 at really close range. You're launching these Sparrows really close. At this range, I would honestly be using Sidewinders. But you're getting kills, so who cares? Next fight, we both launch. I launch a bit later. I think I was in Dodger's backseat here. Actually, no, this might have been the STT one. But you can see here that our missile, because we're in ACM mode, just goes straight. It doesn't even try to loft, because I must have not had him hooked as a target. So instead of trying to launch on him, it just launched. And here we launch another one because that was me, because I was confused as to why this was not targeting him. We go defensive, and this, I believe I was telling you to notch at this point. You can see we're not really notching, but we do still defeat it.
I think this was the one with me. Was this one with you?
Yeah, this is the one where I was in your plane, I'm pretty sure.
I remember one went right past me and I just no, that was definitely.
Yeah. So this first Phoenix, this one I think just missed you because we're not really notching it. So I would say that's more of a just it didn't guide onto you correctly, which does happen with all missiles. And then this AIM-7 gets us good, so that was a pretty good bonsai. If either of these Phoenixes had gone Pipple on you, they wouldn't have been really a threat because we launched them at so far out in Mad Dog. However, they would have at least gotten him worried, so he couldn't just follow up like that. Next fight. So you're at Mach 0.95. We're at Mach 1.5, 1.05. I think this is the one where we traded. We launch on a similar timescale. We're launching a bit early. Okay, our Phoenixes actually pitbulled on each other. That's really rare. Neat. So they saw each other and neutralized each other, I guess.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's really rare. And then here it looks like a Mad Dog Phoenix that didn't track, and then an AIM 7 that gotcha. Yeah, that's really cool actually. I haven't seen that. I've seen that happen with AIM 120s that are launched in Mad Dog. I haven't seen it with Phoenixes launched in TWS. What's our range to each other? I don't want to do all the stuff to get range, but obviously they were pitbull. So sweet.
You saw me stall myself out there.
I don't see it, but okay. So here, I forget what happened at the start of this fight, but we're actually launching this off bore. You can see it's about 10, 20 degrees left, which isn't optimal. I forget why that happened, but it was something weird. So, and we get our missile off a little bit late, I believe. You launched 2 Phoenixes, so I'm guessing you lost the track on the first one, but it's still tracking, because it's tracking the extrapolated file. And that one hits us, and the second one was also tracking well. And then this one misses you, so that's just a win. Oh no, were you? I think you went STT in this one, and you decided to launch 2, I
Yeah,
guess?
that's right. I was with Jester and I STT locked because of the
Okay.
previous one was the one that was dropping you.
Okay. So yeah, in an STT lock, that explains why you launched 2. Why didn't you defend me? You should have shot that one, I guess. And that's what I expected my Phoenixes now. But like I said, I am. If we were a bit better on the notching, or we had turned cold, these missiles would have both been defeated. But we didn't, so they hit us. And this missile went dumb because we stopped guiding it. Right about here, I would guess it's going after you, but it's only at Mach 2.2, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was out of energy. So when you did your turn here, it couldn't follow. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Although it didn't even try, so no, it doesn't have a track here. I think this is the second to last fight. We both launch at about the same time. Purple launches a bit earlier, but Phoenix is both loft. One thing I noticed, Dodger, is you're not cranking here, really. You're flying straight. So, we had a better chance of defeating the missile. We turned into it, which is correct, and it pulled some serious Gs to hit us. Let's see that. It only pulled like 5 Gs. That seems like a very harsh turn for it. Yeah, that seems like it's pulling way more Gs than it is. So, anyways. I'm surprised that it did that much. If you had cranked or broke a bit harder, you would have probably dodged that. I'm surprised it hit us as was. And for you, Dodger, like I said, you didn't crank really in the initial, so you weren't bleeding its energy. So if you look here, it has quite a bit of energy still coming down on you, and it just follows you very easily into this turn that you do. If you had cranked right or left, either way, and then you had turned more aggressively in that at the last moment, you probably would have just bled off its energy. Or if you had cranked, like for instance, left and then broke hard right, you could have outmaneuvered the missile potentially. But without cranking, it has tons of energy, so really no matter what your maneuvering is, it's probably going to hit you. I think that's the last one. Yeah, it is. So yeah. This will be a lot of practice, especially missile evasion is going to be a lot of practice to actually tell what's going on. Does anyone have any questions? Where is it? Not this one. I think it's this one. Yeah, that's really cool. I haven't seen that happen before. As a matter of fact, oh, that's interesting. So you weren't in ACM mode, or you didn't launch that Mad Dog, did you?
I have no idea. No, I wasn't using ACM mode.
Okay, because it looks like this missile's actually dumb. Like, it doesn't look like it's tracking us. So our missile should not have done that. However, it must have gone pitbull, and that was all it could see. So, because it's not even in the way of you though. But I guess it was mean. I don't. By the way, Had, were you using the range gate selector at all?
Not really, no.
Okay, that can be helpful in determining how you want to play a fight. I was using it. Sometimes using it in large gives you more time to evade after your crank, so you can crank and then your missile will go pitbull early, so you can break out of the crank early. That can be very nice. Or you can turn it on short range or short target, and it will pitbull later, which gives the enemy less cues as to what's happening and increases your hit probability a little. So remember to keep that in mind when you're setting up a solution and how you're gonna want to fly something. Also, purple, some advice: don't fly into the sea.
Wait, where?
Right here.
Oh, that was me just walking around.
Yeah, I know, but you know, usually if you win a BVR fight and you crash into the sea, you still lost the BVR fight. And obviously joking.
I don't know. I
So,
was just going out with style.
yep.
On that ACM mode, I don't really know what it does. What kind of situation do I turn that on?
So ACM mode, when you flip, that's within like 15 miles, 10 miles. One thing that it does is it turns your Phoenixes into a Mad Dog missile, which means that it is a Fox 3 missile that is not going to use your radar at all. It is going to launch into the air, and whatever it sees, it's going to attack immediately. You can still guide it, like you can tell it to shoot this target from the back seat, but if you don't give it a target, it'll just shoot the first thing it sees. And even if you give it guidance, it is going to look at that target, but it's just going to kind of go after whatever it wants to. So that's what that ACM switch starts doing. I think it also might disable your roll SAS and your pitch SAS. I'm not sure about that. I don't think it does actually. I think that's only the autopilot emergency disconnect paddle. But really, you don't need to use it. The ACM stands for Air Combat Maneuvering. So what it's telling you there is when you flip up that switch, you are telling the aircraft that I am in a very close range fight, and I want to not have to set things up. I want my missiles to just, when I launch them at whatever I'm at, I'm not going to be doing any maneuvering or anything. I'm not at long range, so just do what you want, missile.
So
I'm not going to help you.
It's like the oh shit switch.
Kinda, yeah. Don't flip.
If your missiles aren't already sidewinder cooler and missile prep's not already on, it will turn that on. It will set your gun rate to high. Like you said, it's an oh shit 10 nautical mile pop up bogey switch.
Yep. Or if you go bonsai, you might want to hit it if you're getting up close. But yeah, for BVR beyond like 20 miles, you should never have that switch on. Within 20 miles, it's based on your situation. Really, it's not going to help you until you're at that 10-mile range anyways. So,
Okay. And that's
That's
a pilot
what
only
that AC
switch?
switch is. That is a pilot only switch. The RIO can turn on the Phoenixes to active in the backseat, which will have the same effect on the Phoenixes, but we don't have any control over the Sidewinder or the guns, really. So that's all you.
Okay, good to know.
Any other questions or any other switches that anyone wants to know about?
I think I'm
Okay.
good.
As the great Gene Wilder once said, class is dismissed. If you guys have any questions, feel free to message me or stick around and ask them. Otherwise, have a good day.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. See you.
Sure thing.